are you guys in for a treat today? So last fall, I joined a mastermind. So for those of you that don't know what that is a group of people committed to growing personally, professionally, and financially. We meet every week. Not everyone in this mastermind are Cutco sales reps or managers, but some people are. And in my mastermind, I've been fortunate enough to meet who you guys are going to get a chance to hear from today, Mr. Spencer Campbell. And Spencer, like I said, you're in for a treat. Here's his bio. If you guys want to make note of this, okay? He had a $10,000 fast start. He's had 2 push weeks. So we have a push week you're going to learn about today. We have a push week starting next Monday. A push week is just like your fast start on steroids. Okay. He's had 2 push weeks where he's sold over $20,000. He's had 1 push week where he sold over $32,000. And he's had 1 push week where he sold over $52,000 in 2 weeks. That's like 27. Pretty impressive. Spencer now boasts a career sales of over $770,000 worth of Cutco being sold. He's never had a push week less than 10 grand in his first 5 years working with Cutco. So when you hear a resume like this, you might think, man, he's been here forever. He's been here for 5 years. He was the #1 Elite League Silver Cup winner. He taught you guys what a Silver Cup is, right? In 2023. At the age of 21, he won himself through the company, a Rolex at 21. And at 23, he bought his first home in Lubbock, Texas at 23 years old through his Cutco Vector opportunity. And in the summer of 2021, he ran his own branch office with the company as well. He's going to be sharing with all of you today what you can be doing on your demos to close bigger and better. So if you guys can help me give him a big warm welcome, that would be great.
Sweet. Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. It's kind of weird to say that it's an honor to talk about knives to Canada. If anybody would have told me any word of that sentence, I would have been like, you are absolutely insane. So honored to be here. So honored for Johnny to hit me up. We actually, crazy enough, through this weird, amazing knife selling job, me and Johnny actually met for the first time in Madrid, Spain. That was the first time that I met Johnny, and it's kind of crazy to see where we've come since there. But super honored to give you guys the goods on selling big. So when Johnny initially told me kind of what he wanted me to go over in terms of selling more and bigger orders and stuff like that, I was, thinking, okay, how can I get them to, how can I help them the most in order to think bigger? Because I think the most important part of selling more Cutco is not only having a certain mindset, but also having the confidence going into each appointment to where you don't feel bad about selling a lot of Cutco. Has anybody gone into an appointment? It's like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know, like Cutco's expensive. Anybody like felt nervous about it or like almost been like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know if they're going to buy anything. So that's really what I want to cover first today, because everybody has their own lives that they've lived, beliefs they grew up with, and experiences have shaped who you are today. And the reason why that's important is because the way that you grew up can determine how you actually view a product like Cutco. Some of you guys might think Cutco's great. Some of you guys might think Cutco's too expensive. Some of you might have not even used Cutco at home. And so, I really want to start off just kind of telling you guys where I started off, give you a little bit more of my story, and let you know how my perspective has changed coming from like a baby 18-year-old to where I am now 5 years later with Cutco. So some of you might not actually know this. I'd actually be surprised if any of you knew this. So I actually got kicked out of my first interview with Cutco. So the reason why is I didn't have on professional attire. I thought Cutco was a scam at the time. I was like working at Domino's Pizza, so I was like, it's got to be better than my car smelling like cheesy bread. And so I walked in with a button-up fishing shirt, athletic shorts, Ray-Bans on, and I had Vans with dogs on them, not wearing any socks. So like any managers on the call, you're like, oh my gosh, if that guy walked 2 steps into my office, he's got to get out of here. So I didn't really necessarily start Cutco on like the greatest of terms. And so started my first summer back in 2020 when COVID just kind of shut the world down, and didn't really think much of it. But I figured, hey, if there's a way for me to make more money without my car smelling like pizza, then absolutely, let's do it. And so ended up doing really well that summer, sold about $50,000. And the next year ended up running a branch office where you kind of run your own business for 3 to 4 months. We ended up being a top 10 branch in the nation. And then in 2023, about 2 years after that, ended up selling $331,000 worth of Cutco, and won the Silver Cup on the Rolex. I'm not wearing it right now because I'm not that bougie, if you can tell from my interview. And so, yeah, and now I'm here, talking to you guys about selling kitchen stuff. And literally 3 months ago, actually just bought my first house at 23. So, for those of you who don't know me, for those of you who are like, who is this crazy guy who walked in weird to an interview? I promise I'm good for it. You're going to get some good nuggets. And obviously, over the course of my time with Cutco in the last 5 years, I've kind of had a perspective shift of what this job can mean for me, what the product can mean for customers, and how it can help you guys really sell bigger. So the biggest thing that I want to stress about Cutco for you guys, and I know it's on Zoom, so it's a little bit tough, but like on a scale of 1 to 10, everybody on the Zoom call, right? If you can like throw up fingers or whatever you want, on a scale of 1 to 10, one being, oh my gosh, this sucks, 10 being like Cutco is the best product ever. Just put up on your hands, like what would you rate Cutco on a scale of 1 to 10? 10, 10, 10, 10. You can be honest too. Don't worry. I'm not a cop. I'm not going to like come to Canada and like swat you down. Right. So for the like 9, right? 8. And so my question to you guys who didn't put up a 10, right? Maybe it's a 9, maybe it's an 8, maybe it's a 7, something like that. Right. Someone didn't have enough fingers. Totally get it. Right. And so if it's not a 10 out of a 10 for you right now, my question for you is what is wrong with Cutco? If you put up a 7 or an 8 or a 9, like what is Cutco missing? What do you feel like would make Cutco better? Maybe some of you guys feel like Cutco's too expensive, right? Maybe some people don't think that they need that luxury for their house. And so, and by the way, that's totally fine. I'm assuming a majority of people on this meeting 18, 19, 20, 21, mid 20s, something like that. It is totally reasonable for you to sit here as 18, 19, 20 year olds thinking that $2,000 for a knife set is expensive. 100%. But to kind of harp on that point, you guys are probably not at the point in your lives where you're making $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 purchases. When I was in training, back in 2020, and they told me that the homemaker was like, I think it was like $1,500 when I first started. I was like, oh my gosh, you know how many Chipotle bowls that I could buy with that? Like, oh my God, like who would ever do that? That would give me that would give me Chipotle for like ever, right? So understanding, right, that the people that you're selling Cutco to makes purchases like that every single week, every single month. I think the timing of this talk is perfect because after buying my house, it is crazy how fast and how much money I spend on a weekly and monthly basis. $2,000 is like a drop in the bucket. I'll have my sister at college be like, oh my gosh, I worked so hard. I saved $2,000. Like, I'm set for the summer. I'm like, girl, I dropped that in 30 seconds every month for my mortgage payment. That is nothing. So, understanding that the people that you're selling to, right, make purchases like that all the time. It is not irregular for them to spend 2, 3, 4, $5,000. Think about anything in your house or anything in your life that you use every day, multiple times a day for the next 20, 30, 40 years. Just think of stuff like write it down, right? If you're on Zoom, throw it in the chat. But some things I've thought of, and you guys can add on to, right? Your bed. You need a place to sleep every night. Your fridge. You need a place to store your full food, right? Your car. You need a place to go with your friends and all that. All of those things do not cost hundreds of dollars. They cost thousands of dollars. I don't know if guys have ever gone furniture shopping for like a kitchen table or a couch. It is insane how much furniture can cost. Right? When you guys were kids and you guys were like, or I don't know, maybe even now, like jumping on the bed and your parents are like, oh my God, don't jump on the bed, right? They're not worried about you. That bed was like 4 grand. They're like, get the hell off of our bed because that is expensive. Right. And so everything around you and everything around the people that you're talking to on your appointments, they spend money like this regularly. And so kind of having that perspective shift and having that mindset going into your appointments is super critical because I could give you guys like the best of the best skills and knowledge on how to sell more Cutco, but it doesn't mean anything if there's even a sliver of you that doesn't feel like Cutco's worth it or doesn't feel like Cutco is, as much value as the customer sees it. So, has anybody here, and to kind of get more into like the nitty gritty, like how to sell more stuff like that, right? Is changing your mindset about how Cutco is what's the right word? Is portrayed to customers, right? Have you guys ever gone to an appointment and like I said earlier, you're kind of like you almost like feel bad, right? You like ask Cutco, you ask Miss Jones, like, oh yeah, do you want to buy the homemaker? And you kind of like don't ask it very confidently. You're like slowly fading away. Like, oh yeah, you want to buy the homemaker? Right. And so kind of having the perspective shift of when I first started, I felt bad selling a lot to Miss Jones. Has anybody ever felt like that? You're like, oh, I kind of almost sold like, I don't think they really needed all of that. Maybe they don't like, maybe I like overshot, or you're worried that they might cancel it when you leave. Oh my God, that's the worst. Right. And so when I first started selling Cutco, I had the mindset of I'm going to try to sell Miss Jones every single piece of Cutco that I can. I thought it was trying to get Miss Jones to spend as much money to get as much Cutco as possible and get me the biggest paycheck. Right. And there's times when if you have that mindset, you will feel bad about selling Cutco. Right. And so I want you guys to write this down because this was the biggest shift for me when I started selling a lot and selling a lot normally, consistently, right? So your job as a Cutco sales rep is not to sell as much Cutco as humanly possible. That is not your job. Your job is to help save Miss Jones as much money as possible on the Cutco she's going to get eventually. Your job is not to sell as much Cutco as possible. Your job is to help save Miss Jones as much money as possible on the Cutco she will get eventually. Because the crazy thing is, as expensive as Cutco is today, right? It is worth every single dollar. And as expensive as Cutco is today, it is the cheapest that Cutco will ever be. If you guys haven't caught on yet, the 2 best times to buy Cutco, the first one was 20 years ago, right? When Cutco was like 1,500, like $1,000. You run into Miss Jones. She's had her Cutco for like 70 years and she bought it for like $4. And you're like, oh my God, Miss Jones, you made such a great investment, right? And then the second cheapest time is today because every year past today, which price does Cutco go up, right? So the longer that Miss Jones waits, the more money that she is going to spend. Has anybody done a demo or an appointment and they're like, oh my gosh, Ava, that was so great, but I think we're gonna get it later. Has anybody had that happen? And then it happens and you're like, oh my gosh, no, you're not. You're such a liar, right? But they've clearly expressed interest, they'd use it, stuff like that, right? So at that point, if you had that previous mentality to where you're trying to sell them as much as possible, you might feel bad about asking for the order or dropping down, right? Or even selling more. But if you come from a place of, I'm trying to help Miss Jones as much as possible, save money today by getting it now rather than waiting later, it works wonders by how much more that you will sell in a given time period. I promise. And if you don't believe me, back in 2022, when I hadn't really committed to Cutco full time, it was kind of like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Does anybody know here what an ultimate set is? Like the big Kahuna knife set. When you saw it, you were like, oh my God, that's way too many knives. Like, holy cow, are they like butchers? No, right? When I still was selling Cutco to Miss Jones, I sold 3 ultimates back in 2022. And then somebody told me that I would be saving Miss Jones money by helping them get it today. The very next year, I sold 14 ultimates in 2023. It accounted for like $60,000 of my sales that year. Who here would love to sell $60,000 of anything, right? Whether it be an ultimate set or whatever, right? I'm sure everybody would love to do that, right? So now that we've kind of shifted your perspective a little bit, right, to know that selling more is a good thing, not a bad thing, now I can give you guys the golden nuggets. All right. So who's with me? Everybody good so far? Right? Does everybody understand it? Okay, perfect. If you have any questions, I don't know if I'm able to answer them. Johnny can let me know, but if we have time at the end, I can answer any questions. So now that I've hopefully helped you shape the way that you view selling Cutco, now I can help you give an idea of why selling sets or how to sell big can actually serve your customers long term. So, from a show of hands, has anybody ever, from the opposite end of the spectrum, have you guys ever sold a couple pieces or even just like 1 or 2 pieces and you left the appointment kicking yourself because you kind of felt like there was more on the table? Or you feel like you could have sold more. You're like, I don't know. I feel like they could have bought more. Right. Now, I've been doing this long enough to where I go sharpen customers' knives. And it is so funny when customers are like, oh my God, Spencer, I have a whole set. And they have like a spatula spreader and 2 table knives. And I'm like, Miss Jones, you have nothing. Like, oh my gosh. Or they'll have like a paring knife and a chef knife. And I go to their house and their paring knife looks like a crayon because they just use it for absolutely everything. Right. Or has anybody had that customer where they're like, oh my gosh, Keegan, I only use one knife for everything. I only need one knife. Like, I don't need all the other stuff. Has anybody have that happen before? And have it and it happens and you're like, oh my gosh, Miss Jones, you have no idea. Now, the reason why customers say that, right, is put yourself in their shoes. Do they only have one knife? Or do they have a drawer full of like a gajillion knives that's like always stuck? They got to like open it halfway and like move a whole bunch of stuff around and stuff like that, right? The odds of them only using one knife is probably because they only have one sharp knife. They only have one sharp knife. Miss Jones has never felt the luxury of actually having a sharp knife set because they've only had one sharp knife their entire life. So, what does that cause them to think? oh my gosh, I only need one sharp knife, Clarice. I just don't need the rest, right? And as much as I would love to support that, Miss Jones, right? What I like to tell my customers, hey, Miss Jones, absolutely, I can totally sell you one knife. I would actually love to sell you one knife, but do you mind if I tell you what ends up happening? Right? Now, for everybody on this call, whether you're a guy or a girl, right? Who here has a pair of shoes? Raise your hand. Okay, good. If anybody's hands down, that'd be bad. I like barely had any shoes in my interview. That's why I got kicked out, probably. But does anybody here, by a show of hands, have one pair of shoes? Just one. Nobody? Nobody's balling? Nobody's balling with the spray on shoes from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs? So the reason why that probably happens is why? Because you have different events, right? You have different outfits. Sometimes you guys have, Crocs, sneakers, flip-flops, high heels, Birkenstocks, Chacos, whatever it is. And then sometimes, my girlfriend's crazy. She has like a bajillion pairs of shoes. They'll have like one pair of shoes and it's the exact same pair, but they're different colors. It's like, why do you need different colors? They need to match different occasions and outings and stuff like that, right? So, Miss Jones, I'm sure we could both get away with only owning one pair of shoes, right? But it's nice knowing that we have other pairs of shoes for different occasions, different styles, different looks. It's the exact same thing with your knives, Miss Jones. I'm sure that you could use that paring knife for a rack of ribs. But as great as Cutco is, there's still the right tool for the right job. That's why most customers end up with a set. Now, from my boys out there, like Johnny was talking about golfing, right? Johnny could totally go golfing with one club. It would suck, but he could probably go golfing with one club. But for those of you who have never gone golfing before, there are literally clubs that are the exact same, but are changed a fraction of an inch to literally make the ball go higher or farther. And for those of you who have never bought golf clubs before, golf clubs are like $1,000 to $3,000 for a set. Just for Mr. Jones to do what? Golf every month, every 4 months, every year. So people had spent far more money on things they use way less of the time. And then the last analogy that I'll use for you guys is tools. Has anybody ever here like had to do some small handyman gig and like you didn't have the right tool for the job? And you're like, oh my gosh, it would be so much easier to nail a nail on the wall with a hammer rather than using a wrench. Miss Jones, Cutco sets is like the full toolbox on your kitchen counter. You're not going to use every knife every single day, but it gives you the peace of mind knowing that when you need to use a knife, you have the right tool for the right job. Everybody with me so far? All good here? Okay, baller. Sweet. So for something like a homemaker set, right? For me personally, when I sell Cutco, the homemaker set is the least amount of pieces to cover all of the jobs in the kitchen. You get one chef knife, you get one paring knife, you get one utility knife, and you get a couple other pieces. Now, I know that a majority of you guys on this call are like fresh out of the gates. Maybe you started yesterday, maybe you started a week ago, maybe you started a month ago. I don't know. Right? But whether you even know what comes in the ultimate or the signature or not, the two most used jobs in any kitchen is chopping and like the chef knife and the paring knife are the two knives that everybody has. And they probably have like a bajillion of them. And the ultimate set is the only set that has 2 paring knives and 3 chopping knives. As crazy as it is to say, the ultimate set is literally the best bang for Miss Jones's buck. Because most people end up with that set anyways. So Cutco incentivizes people to just pay for it all at once because it's the best discount off of any knife set that Cutco has. Have you guys noticed that at all? I don't know how it works with like Canada's pricing or anything, but like if you look at what the set costs retail wise and what you actually sell it for, the ultimate set has the best discount out of any set that Cutco has. It's awesome. It has 3 chopping knives. It has 2 paring knives. It has a boning knife. I live alone at my house right now, and I have an ultimate set, and I use like almost every piece by the end of the week. It's awesome. Use it all the time. And so for you guys, right? Hopefully now it's kind of opened your guys' eyes to see why sets are so important and why buying individual pieces can actually hurt Miss Jones long term. Not like physically, but like she's gonna spend more money long term if she just keeps buying 1 paring knife every single year. Because I don't know if you guys know this, the most expensive way to buy Cutco is buying pieces. Because they'll buy a couple pieces, they'll wait a couple years, they'll buy a couple more pieces, right? That are more expensive than if they would have got them a couple years ago. And then they'll keep repeating that process. So although Cutco is expensive, right? It is 100% worth it. And the last thing that I'll do, because I know I'm running up on time, is a lot of people don't see Cutco in the way of a forever guarantee. Like, I think that's something that's so underutilized with Cutco. Guys, when people buy a Cutco set, they'll have it for like 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Now, obviously, when they're paying for it in full or they're splitting it up over payments, they're not thinking of 50 years. Does anybody here have Netflix? Or like some kind of streaming service, right? Something. So I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but Netflix obviously charges monthly, like $20 a month, right? So let's just say, right, to be safe, Netflix is $20, right? If you guys had Netflix for an entire year, it would be $240. If you had Netflix for the next 30 years, Netflix is $7,200. Stranger Things just got a lot more expensive for some of you. You're like, oh my God, I think I need to cancel my Netflix subscription. Right? But if Netflix went to Tegan and was like, hey, Tegan, we have a proposition for you. We will allow you to have Netflix for the next 30 years. All it's going to cost is $7,000. Are you in or out? Odds are Tegan will be like, hell no, absolutely not. I will just illegally watch it. Right. But they do it through a streaming service. So that way, it just doesn't hurt as much. So as expensive as Cutco is, I promise you guys, because your customers use them every day, multiple times a day for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years, they are literally getting a deal of a lifetime. It's worth it. I promise. So that's all that I got for you guys. And hopefully I did get on time. I don't know where Johnny went, but I don't know if we have time for questions. But yeah.
We got 5 minutes. So first, let's give Spencer a big round of applause. And then Emily is our MC. She'll unmute it at the front. And then we have 5 minutes for questions.
Sounds good. All right. I'm ready for questions. Does anybody have a question? I promise I'm nice. I'm going to answer it.
Yeah, we have some
Jesse has a
questions.
question.
I just said no question.
Okay, go ahead, Clarice. Go ahead.
So
Can you hear him?
What was it like?
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, so what was it like your first experience like selling? Like were you a good seller when you first started? Because I know you've been working here for like half a decade now.
Wow, when you put it like that, I sound like a grandpa. Oh my God, half a decade. That's insane. Holy moly. Don't ever say that again. That is oof. Well, but great question. Um, uh, I wouldn't say I was the best. I feel like I've always been a very outgoing person. But I mean, when I first started, like I was literally like buried my nose in the manual. Like I read it word for word. I maybe looked up twice, like didn't really do a whole lot. And then luckily my parents and my family are very supportive and they bought a set, and then it immediately went to my head. I was like, this job is the easiest. I just read these pages and I make all this money. And I was like, there's absolutely nothing else for me to learn. And then literally the day after I had a meeting like this, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much more to selling knives than I thought. So I think the beauty of this job is there's always something more to learn. I think one of the craziest things is like, we all speak English, right? There's no new words that are being invented when people are selling all this Cutco. It's literally just the way that they frame it and the way that they they show it to a customer can be night and day difference from what you got. So I think the biggest word of advice that I would have for going to sell more Cutco is one, just use it more. You're going to have a lot more conviction by actually using the product. I remember one of my demos, I like cut a pineapple and I felt so bad. I was like surprised. I was like, whoa, like these knives actually cut. And the customer was like, what do you mean? That's what you said. And I was like, oh yeah, what they do. And so I think I definitely wasn't as good as I am now. And it just took a lot of practice and repetition and just, having the right people around me. So hopefully that answered your question. I know that was long-winded. Was it? Did it answer your question? Okay, cool. I think I see his thumbs up. Okay, cool.
Thank you so much for answering the question. Have a
All
great
right,
rest of
Cal,
the day.
right here. Why don't you guys speak up? Marquis, speak up.
Hi, Spencer. Can you hear me?
Hello, yes, I can hear you.
Cool. Okay, awesome. First off, so cool that you sold 14 Ultimates in that 1 year. Question about that is, did you study anything on like Vector Connect, or was there someone that gave a speech that helped you frame the Ultimate better in your demos? So that way you could be selling more?
Yeah, 100%. I think the beauty of Vector and like Cutco as a whole is there's so many resources out there that are 100% free. Like, how cool is it that I get to jump on this Zoom from Texas to Canada of all places? And it's just free content for you guys to use for you to go put into place. So on Vector Connect, there's plenty of audios, videos on like not even just ultimates, how to sell more ultimates, how to sell more sets, how to drop down, stuff like that. So there is an infinite amount of resources that you can use on Vector Connect and also just on YouTube. Like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Brian Carter. He's a CSP and a coordinator down here in Texas. He literally gives out free YouTube videos on his YouTube with the best of the best CSPs just talking about their skill sets and how they sell a ton of Cutco. So yeah, definitely check those out. And I don't have any one specific, or actually, yeah, the best video that I watched was Seth Kinzer selling Ultimates. So Seth and then Kinzer, Kinzer. He's a beast and a really great guy. So hopefully that answered your question.
Thank you.
Did I answer it?
Well, thank you, Spencer, so much. Let me adjust the camera here. But yeah, that was gold. Maybe we want to go sell some ultimates. So awesome. Thank you.